Let's welcome Mick Harvey now.
Well, I've been asked by the Howard family to say a few words, and what I've got written here, I feel people have already said half of it. I guess I'll just say some of it again. I assumed that people wanted me to say a few words about my collaboration, my musical collaboration with him, which has been very long and fruitful. So I'll try and put that in there somewhere. Anyway, in some ways it seems potentially superfluous to talk about his music because just about everyone present has some knowledge or idea or opinion or unshakable belief in the music Rowland made, and which was so central to his life. So I don't really know what else to say about that. But I met Rowland in late '77 as what would become the Melbourne New Wave scene was staggering out of the suburban morass to congregate in the inner suburbs. And so many people were thrown together in such a short space of time, and the momentum and dynamic were dizzying. And it was in this rarefied atmosphere that we had our early encounters. His band at the time, The Obsessions, seemed to be stalling as the local scene set sail, but it wasn't long before he'd formed what was perceived as something of a perverse supergroup with Ollie, Janine Hall, and the imported Queenslander with his Saints pedigree, Mr. Jeffrey Wegner. The band didn't disappoint, at least artistically, but they failed to commit anything to tape, imploding after 13 gigs around town. And it was after this sad demise in 1978 that I apparently asked Rowland to join the Boys Next Door. Well, I have no memory of this, but can well imagine, with the dynamic of things being as they were, that this was in fact the case and that I was deputised to undertake this task. But what followed through the next 5 years was a creative and personal whirlwind, really. And that was to stay with and feed all of those involved, myself, Nick, Phil, Tracy and Rowland, through the years that followed. And there must surely be an irony that many of the traits which bring us together to create and experiment and enjoy working collaboratively and have us put our faith in one another, intensity, sensitivity, creative drive, ambition, individuality, all those powerful potentials we admire in each other are the same ones that can drive us apart when we're at close quarters on tour or living together or finding success. And so it was, and it found its end. So in the years that followed, I worked with Rowland again in Crime in the City Solution, and then I drifted to Berlin and he into These Immortal Souls, and many years went by, and strangely and circuitously we found ourselves back in Melbourne in the late 1990s. Now, most of the times I'd see Rowland, I'd be regaled with the latest outrage that some mutual friend or acquaintance had had the temerity to utter, usually accompanied with a couple of my godfathers along the way. I don't know who his godfather was, but he had a lot to answer for, I tell you what. Then when Rowland called me and asked me to work on his solo album, I can confess that I was surprised. And 10 years later, when he asked me to work on what would become Pop Crimes, his second, I was surprised again. But I had no hesitation on either occasion in saying yes. I knew that any work with Rowland would be artistically exacting and rewarding, and that's the way I like it. Rowland was uncompromising and opinionated about his music, and that's why so much of what he did has greatness about it. And I haven't even mentioned his guitar playing. So, ladies and gentlemen, his guitar playing. Many people have thanked me in the last week for the support I've showed Rowland over the years, and I feel humbled by that. But inwardly I'm confused at the same time, because for me it was always a clear case of mutual advantage. When Rowland asked me to be involved in his recordings, I was always flattered and happy to accept the challenge and the rewards that might come with that association. So, Rolly was in equal parts infuriating, lovable, loving, hilarious, brilliant, outraged, gentle, and helpless. He was quite simply unique. If I can paraphrase George Orwell, everyone's unique, but some people are more unique than others. So we're all really going to miss him. We're all really going to miss him. So thank you.
We now welcome Jane before us.
Excuse me. Whenever the late and wonderful Jackie Everett and her friend Annette Trevitt passed Rowland in the street, Jackie would remark, "See that guy? He's a winner." Neither Jackie nor Annette knew Rowland then, but when Annette did get to know him, she confirmed Jackie's observation. Rowland S. Howard could be an elusive man, and I suspect many people here in recent times felt deprived of his company. But as Jen said, I know Rowland kept a place in his heart for anyone he'd ever loved. Family, friends, and lovers. Excuse me. In the weeks before Rowland died, when his mortal casing really began to fail him, it was his heart, literally, that kept him alive. When one held him, his grip was strong, masculine, and propelled by a strident heartbeat. I met Rowland some 15 years ago at Paul Goldman's place. Gleefully, Paul told Rowland an embarrassing story at my expense. While I blushed scarlet, Rowland grinned wickedly. And I realised right then that this man I'd spent so many teenage moments contemplating from afar was far more accessible in the flesh than I'd imagined he'd be. He was funny, he was sexy, and he was generous. He gave me his last cigarette, a Lark charcoal filter. Imprinted upon my memory is an image of Rowland on that day. Elegant, regal, killer cheekbones. Those blue eyes seemed to look right into one's soul. Excuse me. It struck me in the last few weeks of Rowland's life that the essence of the man was becoming distilled. In that precious time my son Tom and I spent with Rowland in the hospital, that essence, calm, knowing, and at that point even more ethereal, enveloped the room. The bond which had ultimately drawn us together as husband and wife and family was there, stripped bare, unencumbered with life's messiness and our sometimes jagged history. It was wonderfully reassuring and calming. It was a gift I thank God for, and I thank Jen and Bianca for their grace in allowing us that time. As Rowland said in the lyric, I've got a lot to say, but I keep my own counsel. In an effort to try and follow suit, I'll finish on this. Rowland died with what Genevieve beautifully described as a beatific smile on his face. I'm sticking to the notion that Harry and Angela, Genevieve and Bianca filled his room so full of love that Rowland finally allowed himself to be transported by angels to his next destination, with thanks to Genevieve, a plectrum in his pocket.
Thank you, Jane, and